Hey everyone, welcome to Continuous Thunder. Today we're going to talk about the new Matmos album, Plastic Anniversary, out now on Jockey Records. Now, I wasn't planning on reviewing this album, but sometimes you just hear something and it's so compelling that you just have to talk about it. Matmos is an experimental electronic duo who have been active since the mid-90s, and they specialize in sample-based electronic music. They take field recordings, they record with found objects or whatever, and they take all the samples that they get from that and they piece together experimental electronic music out of it. While they don't exclusively do this, they are particularly known for formal limitations that they put on themselves whenever they record these albums. There's a few times where they didn't do this, but most of the time they do like some kind of field recordings. There's one time where they did stuff that was found all throughout their own home. There was stuff that they could only find or hear within an operating room at a hospital. They even did an entire album built around sounds that they got from their washing machine. Plastic Anniversary, their latest album, falls into that similar category, where this time they only used objects made of plastic to generate all the sounds that you hear on this album. The goal of this album, in their own words, was to draw attention to how something like plastic, something that's durable and versatile, can be so useful to and beneficial to our human life, but detrimental and damaging to nature and the life of our own planet. Now, I know that might sound like a gimmick, something kind of cheesy, to work in some heavy-handed activism or environmentalism into a piece of music. But trust me when I say that the music that's actually on this album goes far beyond any gimmick or heavy-handed symbolism. When I went into this album, all I knew about it is that it was going to be an experimental album and it was going to be made with sounds from plastic objects. Also, that some people in the music review community are pretty hype on this group and the music that they make. The point is, I had no expectations for exactly what kind of music I was going to hear. Usually when I go into experimental music, I expect the worst. Something's going to be atonal, it's not going to be melodic, it's just going to be all around challenging and difficult to listen to. When I first got into the first track of this album, called Breaking Bread, I found myself smiling like an idiot and laughing my butt off. And it's not in a sense of making fun of what I was hearing. It's a situation where you're exposed to something so unexpected that you just have to react in some way. And it just so happens that the reaction that my brain landed on whenever I heard it was laughter. The track unmistakably sounds like it's being made on plastic objects. You hear plastic sheets like folders wobbling, and you hear things like bass lines that sound like they're played on rubber bands. And the bottom line is, though, it was melodic, it was bouncy, it was fun, it was, dare I say it, poppy and enjoyable to listen to. And the song wasn't even just melodic, the melody was actually fun. If I would compare it to something that, you know, I've heard before, I would compare it to the melody that you would find in a song like They Might Be Giants would write. And this type of poppy, fun, bouncy, melodic music permeates throughout this entire album. Now, it's not the only type of music that they make with these plastic objects. There's sometimes where they go a little more introspective, like on the track Interior with Billiard Balls and Synthetic Fat. It starts almost as like an ambient room recording of someone rolling billiard balls around with them smacking into each other and capturing that noise, but then it eventually turns into actually a pretty pleasant IDM listening experience. Other tracks like Thermoplastic Riot Shield are really glitchy and dense and claustrophobic, industrial, almost fitting of a soundtrack for a situation where one of those riot shields would be used. Adding to the fun nature of this album and the group as a whole is the fact that with some of the titles of these songs, they give you hints as to what one of the primary objects they used in creating the song was. Stuff like the singing tube, or fanfare for polyethylene waste containers, or the previously mentioned thermoplastic riot shield, or the billiard balls and synthetic fat. And the silicone gel implant. Yes, that kind of silicone implant. They used one of those, and believe it or not, the song isn't that bad. Even though I was shocked with how much I ended up enjoying this album as a whole, that doesn't mean I enjoyed absolutely everything that was on it. The last track on the album, Plastisphere, is an ambient track that has white noise that is generated through, sounds like cellophane being crinkled. It's a plastic generated white noise. I was not a fan of that. And then another track that I wasn't too big on was The Crying Pill. And while it's not unpleasant to listen to, compared to everything else, it was one that I just had a harder time enjoying. It sounds like a cacophony of the plastic bicycle horns that you find on like the pink bicycles that you buy for little girls. And I'm just like, this is the soundtrack of a nightmare overrun with clowns. And like I said, it's not unpleasant, it's just one of the harder ones to digest compared to some of the other stuff that's on this album. It's definitely a case of where I don't discount the value of these songs. I definitely understand why these exist and can appreciate the existence of songs like this. It's just they're not really my personal cup of tea. Along with those two tracks, another thing that kind of goes against this album is that there is no mistaking that this album was made with plastic items. It's not going to fool anyone into believing it is some kind of club EDM electronic music. Even though I said the music on this album goes beyond being a gimmick, there is still a certain level of being a gimmick or novelty to these songs, and it does kind of detract from it. But what kind of negates that is just the level of musical genius required to not only make viable and compelling music on this level, but to continually do it for over 20 years. Overall, I give Plastic Anniversary a 4 out of 5. It was just an absolute pleasant surprise whenever I first put this album on and listened to it. It completely blew me away, and even though there's some tracks in there that I can't get into, it's a testament to the musical talents of the two members of this band to be able to compose good, bouncy, fun, poppy music out of everyday plastic objects. But that's going to do it for this round of Continuous Thunder. Now I'd like to know your thoughts. Did you listen to this album? Did you like it? Did I get it right? Did I get it wrong? I know this one's probably not going to be for everyone. I'm just going to put that out there. But anyway, you can leave those opinions down in the comments if you want. You can also leave suggestions for the next thing that I should review. Don't forget that you can follow the channel now on Twitter at CT Music Review. That handle will be on the screen, and a link to the Twitter account will be down in the description. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.